My name is James, and this is my FMP research evaluation. When I first started the project, I looked into the themes that I was presented with in the project brief. So I looked into themes like openings and force, and then I took that word and I broke it down into smaller words or categories. This just gave me a much clearer understanding of what each theme meant and what I could do when I expand the word out to multiple meanings. For example, if I took the word openings, I could branch the word openings out into loads of different words like keyholes, windows, doors, opportunities, the mind, religion. And by allowing myself to branch out, this has helped me in my development throughout my project, and has also helped influence my final piece, because if I hadn't branched out, then I don't think I would have had the same outcome. As for my research as a whole, I conducted a lot of secondary research by looking into sources online, mainly through the Google and Wikipedia definitions page, as I wanted to have a better understanding of the keywords I was going to follow when looking into my designs, especially when I was trying to understand different methods. As for my primary research, I mainly focused on taking photos within my project so I could better understand the methods I was researching. For example, one of the artists I looked into was a photographer, and he shot his photos in a certain style, so I took the opportunity to use my camera and take photos in his style. I know this obviously links into my design work, but it was important to me to also use my primary research to better understand my design, my design research as well. So yeah, I continue to use my camera and take multiple photos to better understand the workflow of the artists I was looking into. As for the sources for all of my research, obviously the primary research of my own photos helped me in the long run. However, for my primary research, not including the photos, a lot of my sources were very trustworthy, and I will say I will definitely be using those sources again in future projects. As for my secondary research, I can say that the sources I used were very reliable. I've used the same sources from my previous projects, which I believe to be very trustworthy. I use websites like Wikipedia that are constantly checked for correct information. I also use photography blog pages from famous photographers to better understand keywords and methods used towards my design work. I will say, however, that because I've used some of these sources in my previous work, that I did have a slight biased choice in my sources, only for maybe 20% of the locations I used to gain my research, but this is only because of my previous knowledge of the pages I used. In future, however, I will look to experiment with even more new websites to get a fresh perspective on what I'm researching. Because of the type of project I was presented with, this did affect what research I was looking into, which did positively and negatively affect how I conducted when doing my research. For an example, because some aspects of this project surrounded photography knowledge, I looked at pages that I know and trust, which was very helpful. But on the other hand, where I looked into creating a business or campaign, which I did finish off taking the campaign route, I needed to look into different websites that I didn't know to trust at the time. I had to trust the reviews and look into different communities that have the knowledge and reference them from one another's comments to make sure that what I was reading was correct. This did affect outreaching to different sources, which did limit me at times to conduct my research. However, in the end, I believe that the research I conducted was significant towards my project. In addition to this, what I will say is that because I looked at all these different websites and I went out of my way to explore different avenues, I've managed to learn a lot about different methods towards photography and different words and phrases to use when creating a campaign. I also learned a lot about how to set up a campaign respectfully in the public eye. This helped a lot within my design work as well. It took me quite a long time to fully understand how a campaign worked and how to conduct a campaign properly, but from looking back, it's helped me a lot because I've managed to expand in areas that I haven't looked at before, which I believe in the end of it I've learnt a lot from, and I will use in future projects. I also want to say that I think it's safe to say that my research has influenced my work so much, from the initial expanding of one of my themes to different words, to looking into campaigns and different photo methods that I've never explored before. It's helped me better understand the theme I was working with. It's also helped me understand my project better. I will definitely be following the same steps in future projects. But to get down to more detail, when I was researching for more information on how to set up a campaign correctly, I looked into successful businesses and successful campaigns that have done well. For example, the NCS campaign. which explains their activities in quite raw detail. So from looking at this, I've managed to influence my designs from looking at their transitions, the fonts they use, their presentation skills, and many more elements of their campaign that not a lot of people would notice unless they were looking for it. I also want to say that although I've covered a lot within my research and I've learnt a lot and managed to create, in my opinion, some really amazing work in comparison to some of my older units, I think I should have looked into these websites and these themes in more detail. I feel that I may have been too excited to look into one specific element of the grand design instead of focusing on that one element and expanding on it and putting my own twist towards it. For example, when I researched into logo design, I just looked at vectorizing different shapes and text, when actually I haven't looked into connecting vector patterns into text before, which could have been a great opportunity for me if it would work in my project. So I think next time I should probably spend a little bit more time understanding each element in more depth when I conduct my research. But as I've said, the research that I've done has helped my design and it was very useful, but maybe going that little bit further could have boosted things a lot higher in the long run. I don't really think any of the research I conducted was a waste of time or wasn't useful, because even things that were not touched again until the end of the project or whenever looked back on, they still gave me the knowledge of knowing a new method or understanding a key phrase that when presented the opportunity to use that in my work, I could have if it was brought up again. There are a lot of key words that I've learned through my research that I never had to use throughout my project, but just knowing that I now know what certain words mean and how to use them correctly in my design work, that could be the difference between a merit and a distinction. So I think my research went really, really well.